Yo, what's going on, people? It's your boy Huncho, back at you again with another video. And so there's a couple of stories that I wanted to go over with you guys that involve attacks on emergency workers. I know in this field of work, situations can get pretty heated and can escalate in quite literally seconds, but I've never really understood why people go out their way to attack emergency workers unprovoked, especially paramedics. If you guys didn't know, it was only in September of last year, due to the massive increase in attacks on emergency workers, that new reforms came in that now doubles the sentence if you go on to attack an emergency worker. But with that being said, this first story happened over these past few days, and at around 11:55 PM on the 8th of July 2021, police were called to reports of an assault at an address on Burrator Avenue in Princetown. But because Princetown is a small village in Devon, police would arrive around 3 hours later. When two male police officers from Devon and Cornwall Police arrived at the scene, it's believed that a male suspect fled and officers tried to find him. When they finally encountered the suspect, 60-year-old John Ross, it's thought that he lashed out at police with a knife and subjected both officers to a violent stabbing. Luckily, firearms officers had been patrolling in the area and were able to offer urgent assistance. Here they treated both men for their injuries before rushing them to hospital, and they apprehended John, where he was arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. Both officers are believed to be in a non-life-threatening condition, but they did suffer some pretty bad injuries. One sustained injuries to his arms and has since been discharged from hospital, whilst the other remains in hospital after he received stab injuries to the face and arms. The reason he's in hospital is because he's going to have to undergo surgery. But this situation does raise some questions about response times to these smaller places. Obviously, firearms officers were nearby, but you got to think to yourself, if they wasn't in the area, realistically, how long would it have taken for emergency services to arrive? Remember, the paramedics didn't even turn up to treat the officers, it was those firearms officers who treated them. I really do think if those officers hadn't been in the area, we could have been dealing with 2 dead police officers right now, in my own opinion. Today, in an update, it's believed that John went on to be charged with 2 counts of assault causing grievous bodily harm with intent, possession of a bladed article, and 2 counts of assaulting emergency workers. And I think to show you a similar situation, to kind of paint an image of what happened, only a couple of days ago was this most recent court case that came out of Wolverhampton, which involves another stabbing on emergency workers, this time at paramedics. Just quickly before we get into this one, body cam footage has been released of this incident by police, but if you want to go and watch that, it will be up over on my Instagram, which will be linked down in the description below. On the 6th of July 2020, emergency services were called to an address on Stevens Close in Wolverhampton, as they were carrying out a welfare check on 52-year-old Martyn Smith, after he hadn't been seen by people that he knew for about a week. Initially, paramedics Mick Hipgrave and Dina Evans arrived at the scene and proceeded to knock on doors. They also knocked on windows for several minutes, announcing that paramedics had arrived, but when no one answered, they then called for the police. When police arrived at the scene, paramedics entered the property, but Martyn would go on to lunge towards both of them. He stabbed Mick in his back, whilst Dina was stabbed in the chest, which caused her to suffer a punctured lung. Police then stepped in, tasered him, and arrested him, where he would go on to be charged with 2 counts of wounding with intent to cause grievous bodily harm. This is Dina and Mick talking of the incident.
He just came running at me with a knife in each hand. Initially I didn't see the knives, I thought he punched me, but he had about an 8-inch knife in each hand, ran at me. I thought he punched me, and obviously I fell back, and then I got pushed out of the door, and then I noticed my t-shirt was really wet and warm, and as I patted myself down, I saw all the blood on my gloves, and that's when I checked my chest and I shouted, "I've been stabbed, I've been stabbed." And I remember as I put my hand over my chest, I remember seeing the blood coming through my hand, and I couldn't stop the bleeding. I collapsed in the garden, and I remember the female police officer trying to hold my chest, trying to stem the bleeding, and I remember grabbing her collar, and I remember saying, "Please don't let me die," and she said, "I'm not going to let you die." had it have not been for Mick stepping in front of me, had it have not been for the police officer pressing on my chest despite me fighting her off, and everybody treating me on scene, putting the chest seals on and packing the wound, and the police getting me on the ambulance as fast as they could, and the police tasering. Had it have not been for that entire scene, even though it was really quick, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here.
Recently, Martyn would go on to plead guilty to the charges that were brought against him, and he's been jailed to 9 years in prison. But like we can see, this 12-second incident nearly cost 2 people their lives, and a man will now be spending some years behind bars. But I think the sad thing about this situation is that all they were doing is seeing if everything was okay with Martyn. But this is just one of 1,100 reported attacks on paramedics alone that happened in 2020. But these are the people we call on when lives are trying to be saved. So again, it does confuse me why people go out their way to attack them unprovoked. But let me know what you guys think of this down in the comment section below. Give the video a little like, and if you want the latest drill, street and music news out of the UK, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. It's been your boy Huncho, and I'm out.